We shall now move on to take action on draft resolution L19, Situation of Human Rights in Eritrea. I give the floor to the representative of the Czech Republic, who will speak on behalf of the European Union to introduce the draft. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I have the honor to present on behalf of the European Union draft resolution L19 on the situation of human rights in Eritrea, which seeks to renew the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on Eritrea. As mentioned by the Special Rapporteur during the interactive dialogue earlier this session, the human rights situation in Eritrea has not improved over the past 12 months. On the contrary, it has worsened. The EU shares many of its concerns, inter alia, on the practice of indefinite national service, the many cases of enforced disappearance, arbitrary arrest and arbitrary detention, the absence of the independent rule of law institutions and the proper administration of justice, the inhumane detention conditions and the severe restrictions on the rights to freedom of expression and opinion, freedom of assembly and association and freedom of religion or belief. The European Union also remains gravely concerned about the involvement of Eritrean troops in the conflict in Tigray. For those reasons, the human rights situation in Eritrea requires continued monitoring. Mr. President, the principle of sovereignty does not free states from their obligations under the international human rights law and international humanitarian law. We reiterate our call on Eritrea, a member of this Council, to step away from its policy of limited cooperation and to work together with Special Rapporteur as well as its other international and regional human rights mechanisms. Dear colleagues, L19 is a technical, straightforward resolution. It is the product of an open, transparent negotiation process. We thank all delegations for their cooperation and their valuable comments, and we hope that you can all support the adoption of this resolution. I thank you.
Thank you.
The Secretariat informs me that there are 6 additional co-sponsors. I now give the floor to the members of the Council who wish to make general comments. I give the floor to the delegation of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Somalia would like to begin by reaffirming its strong commitment to the values and principles of human rights. We believe that the issue of human rights is our common cause. We all have the primary responsibility to promote and protect the human rights of our people and also to contribute to the global effort aimed at ensuring the promotion and protection of human rights around the globe. However, we are convinced that the best method to achieve this goal is to adopt a cooperative approach. Imposing a mandate to a sovereign state without its consent will serve only to poison further the atmosphere of confrontation and politicization in the Human Rights Council, and will not create a conducive environment to the healthy promotion of human rights value and principle on the ground. This resolution is a living example that's showing this reality. Mr. President, for the sake of the credibility and integrity of this August Council, member states should rigorously respect the principle of universality, impartiality, objectivity and non-selectivity for their initiative aimed at promoting the human rights value and principle. Mr. President, for all these reasons, Somalia reiterates its clear and consistent position on this draft resolution since 2018, following the various positive developments that occurred in the Horn of Africa region, including in the human rights field. We therefore call for a vote and invite all member states to join us in voting against this unnecessary and counterproductive resolution. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Si no hay más.
If Ukraine has the floor.
Mr. President, we wish to thank the delegation of the European Union for presenting this draft resolution. It's been a decade since the situation of human rights in Eritrea was first brought to the attention of this Council in the form of a resolution. Unfortunately, the results of these 10 years are not encouraging, as Eritrea remains a country with one of the most problematic human rights records on the African continent. Serious challenges persist related to upholding the rule of law, continuing militarization of society, protection of fundamental freedoms, widespread sexual and gender-based violence. On top of that, instead of focusing on resolving these challenges, Eritrea cooperates closely with other autocratic regimes that engage in gross and systematic violations of human rights while condoning Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Mr. President, we believe that the text before us presents a genuine attempt to assist Eritrea in stepping on a path of respect for rule of law and human rights. We acknowledge its balanced and transparent approach that the authors of the resolution took to negotiation process. For these reasons, Ukraine supports draft resolution and calls on all members to vote in favor of it. I thank you.
Thank you. No veo más solicitudes.
I see no further requests for the floor for general comments. I shall now give the floor to the state concerned. The Ambassador of Eritrea has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The draft resolution on the human rights situation on Eritrea L19 is a continuation of the hostile policy of the sponsors of resolution on Eritrea and doesn't reflect the objective reality on the ground. Since inception, the resolutions have suffered from defamatory approaches and stance, a mix of issues that shun objective reality and truth, and at times the establishment of duplicate mandates as the Council lost balance. The resolution and mandate, which initially failed to showcase an African face, eventually has been crystal clear that it is an EU resolution driven by a core group of countries with hardline anti-Eritrea position. The aim still remains to use the mandate as a continuation of the failed existential external threats aimed to vilify, isolate, and destabilize Eritrea in the pretext of human rights. Since last year, the debate in the Human Rights Council has substantively changed against the mandate, and almost double the countries who support the mandate have spoken against it repeatedly. The present resolution is thus another attempt that should not escape the scrutiny of the Council as it continues to subject a sovereign state to the dictation of a special rapporteur under a confrontational, politicized approach. In sharp reaction to the loss of momentum of the mandate, the EU has opted to load the draft by unwarranted new responsibilities and procedures in order to continue pressure in Eritrea high on the agenda of the Council. Several unwarranted measures proposed in the draft resolution should be taken as wake-up calls, again in due respect to the UN Charter and the UN International Principles on Human Rights. In this regard, note is to be made that the draft resolution imposes implementation of benchmarks in violation to the sovereign rights and equality of Eritrea and negates the national context, priorities, and implementation. It also undermines the power and independent political stance of a responsible government in contravention to the principle of non-interference in the domestic affairs of a sovereign nation. The draft also attacks the National Service Program, ignoring Eritrea's right to live in peace without any threats and negates the legitimate right to self-defense capabilities of the state. Furthermore, the enhanced interactive dialogue proposed in the draft is a demonstration of the reckless effort at putting pressure on states by also leveling the ground for creating a platform for the participation of political entities and anti-government elements who could not meaningfully and independently contribute in the deliberations that add value to the Council's efforts and understandings. For the above reasons, Eritrea objects to resolution and calls for the members of the Council to oppose this politicized, confrontational, and unproductive approach and resolution that has not so far created any dividend and send a strong message that the usual politicization of human rights for other political ill intent is no more acceptable and endangers the sanctity of this august body. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. La Secretaría.
The Secretariat has informed me that there are PBIs amounting to $465,000 US. I now give the floor to the members of the Council who wish to make an explanation of vote prior to the vote. I give the floor to the delegation of China.
主席先生，人权理事会的工作应遵循普遍性。
Thank you. The Council must respect the principles of universality, objectivity, and non-selectivity. China has always favored dialogue, constructive dialogue in the area of human rights, and is opposed to politicization and the establishment of mechanisms over certain countries without their consent. The authors of this draft are ignoring the accomplishments of Eritrea in this area. Despite the opposition voiced by Eritrea, they are imposing the prolongation of the Special Rapporteur's mandate, attempting to impose foreign criteria for development on them and to interfere in their domestic affairs. We call on all parties to oppose all attempts to politicize human rights and to interfere in domestic affairs of countries. We will be voting against this draft resolution, and we call on others to do the same. Thank you, President.
Tiene la palabra la...
Thank you. I give the floor to Venezuela. Thank you, President, and good morning to all. Venezuela would like to express its opposition to draft resolution L19 against Eritrea. Since 2012, unfortunately, Eritrea has been the object of continued and unjustified resolutions within this Council, through which a mandate of a Special Rapporteur was imposed. This mandate does not have the consent of the state concerned. Eritrea did not accept the reports either, which have been presented by that special procedure every year, the common denominator of which has been reports full of flimsy and unsubstantiated allegations, and this has characterized the mandate since the very outset. We call for these mandates to be used within the... We say that these mandates are often used as politicized instruments against sovereign states, and they do not contribute to improving the human rights situation on the ground. President, Eritrea is currently in better conditions for building on their material and human resources in order to foster the development of their country, in order to foster swift and sustainable development and bolster their judiciary. The Council should focus its efforts on protecting the human rights of Eritrea's people. In fact, Eritrea successfully completed its 3 UPRs. We remain opposed to the imposition of country-specific mandates on countries of the Global South, which very often, as we have said, undermine the sovereignty and integrity of these states, which are principles enshrined in the UN Charter. So we will vote against draft resolution L19, and we urge other members of the Council to do the same. Thank you.
Gracias. Tenga palabra.
Thank you. I give the floor to the delegation of Brazil.
Micrófono. Yeah. Micrófono para Brasil, por favor. Aí.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente. Brazil continues to follow the situation of human rights in Eritrea and developments in the broader region closely. We remain worried about the involvement of Eritrean forces in the conflict in Ethiopia, which has entailed the militarization of the country and the continued conscription of the population. The impact of that involvement on the domestic human rights situation is a cause for concern. In our view, the closure of civic space, enforced disappearances, the detention of political prisoners, and the persecution of religious minorities, as reported, undermine efforts to find peace and stability in the country. Brazil will once again vote in favor of this resolution, as we believe that extending the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Eritrea can contribute to addressing the challenges that persist. We consider that the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework for Eritrea, launched in January 2022, provides a renewed opportunity for the Eritrean government to step up its cooperation with relevant multilateral mechanisms, and we remain hopeful that the present resolution will also be instrumental to that effect. Thank you.
Obrigado. Consulto si...
Are there any further requests for the floor to make an explanation of vote before the vote? I see none. Therefore, at the request of the delegation of Somalia, the Council will now proceed to a recorded vote on draft resolution L19. I ask the Secretariat to open the voting machine, and I request delegations to please vote.
Veo que todas las delegaciones...
I see that all delegations have voted. Please confirm that your vote is correct. I now close the vote. The results of the vote are as follows: 21 in favour, 10 against, and 16 abstentions. Draft resolution L19, Situation of Human Rights in Eritrea, is therefore adopted. A copy of the result of the vote will shortly be uploaded on the extranet.